Hi everyone. Welcome to week, what is this, 2 or 3 of our sequestered classes. This week, the narration that I give might be a little bit longer than normal. There's a lot to cover this week. This week's topic is something that I'm hoping that you'll all get something out of, although I think you may get different things for each one of you. It's on business. Um, it's one of the things that I was requested to include the um, in the outline for the semester. And actually, last semester, I think it was one of the more well-received classes that we did. So I know a couple of you are interested in making money with photography, although I think at this point you may be thinking more along the lines of fine art and so forth, and that's fine. But I guarantee you that you will, if you haven't already, you will be asked at some point to photograph someone or some event for money. And so I want to give you a couple of tidbits of information about that and about the thought process behind doing this as a business. Again, some of this is specific to portrait work, but the overall principles I think will work with just about any type of um, business that you might want to come up with. So there's a lot of people out there that kind of knock anybody doing photography for money who is not strictly a professional. And I will say that if you are planning to do it at any point in time for the long term, you want to do it right. You want to set up, you want to have a business license. You want to make sure that you're running everything legally and properly, not just for tax purposes, but for liability to protect yourself as well. There are some insurance issues and things along those lines that we may get into here as well during this class. So just want to start it off a little bit lighthearted. As far as hiring a professional, it is a bit of a joke. I'm not advocating that you can't do this as a sideline, but I'm going to kind of poke fun at that a little bit here for just a minute.
When you get bad wedding photos, you get depressed. When you get depressed, you have empty picture frames. When you have empty picture frames, your friends think you're crazy. When your friends think you're crazy, they hold an intervention. When they hold an intervention, you hear things you don't want to hear. When you hear things you don't want to hear, you follow your husband. Then you can't stop following your husband. When you can't stop following your husband, you throw mysterious garbage bags into the ocean. When you throw garbage bags into the ocean, you end up on cops. Don't end up on cops. Hire a professional photographer.
Okay, so that's kind of lame, but it is kind of funny too. Um, Again, anyone doing it long term, do it right. Occasionally, you want to make a little extra cash on the side. You didn't hear that from me, but everybody does it. Everybody starts that way at the very least. So, but I do want to show you a few things as far as if you are going to do it for money, how to do it for money, and how to maximize the time that you invest in it. Because any time that you invest, you should be compensated for. And so we're going to talk a little bit about all of that as we go through. There are two basic business models that you can use. One is fee-based, and the other is product-based. And there's some differences between the two. So a fee-based example would be you photograph a family for a set price, say $150, and you include the digital files for them to make their own prints. This one's neat. It's tidy. They write you a check or hand you cash. Cash is better, honestly. And you hand over a product and you're out the door, and everybody's happy. The problem with that is that you put some limitations on yourself. So let's look at the product-based example. And so now you're going to photograph the same family, but you charge a session fee or a creation fee. Let's say it's $99, and then you attempt to sell prints, frames, and other products. Well, the differences are that in a fee-based session you cap your sale at the agreed upon price. So that $150, it's not going to go any higher. They're not going to come back and say, hey, by the way, we want another set of copies of those digital files. No, they can do that themselves. You've set a price, they've paid you, and that's pretty much the end of story. Now, to some people that's attractive. But I want to show you what you're leaving on the table if you do that, because in a product-based session, it's open-ended, there's no limit, and that's assuming that you have multiple products and can sell multiple prints to more than one person in that group. So I want to show you a little bit about how that process works, or how it works with me. Everybody's a little bit different as far as how they approach it and what they do, but I'm going to give you a few examples of what I do and how I do it. So let me switch out of this, and I'm going to bring this up. So the very first thing that I do with almost every client, regardless of what type of client it is, and that does exclude corporate, headshots and things like that. We don't go to this extent for those types of clients, but any portrait work, whether it's a family, a high school senior, we don't do weddings anymore, but when I did something along these lines as well. So I'm on a website called Animoto.com, and this is basically an automated slideshow program. And as you look, you can see all the different templates that are available. Let's say if we wanted to pick this, it gives you a little bit of a look at what that template looks like, how the transitions work, what the backgrounds look like. Let's pick another one here. This one's called Cosmic Tidings. You can see we get the sound down, so we don't need to see that, but you kind of get the idea. There's a very different look to this, and then we can hit create video, and I'll show you in a minute how easy that works. This one is called End Days of Light. And so this is a little specific, obviously, to the Jewish community. Fire is one that I use occasionally because it does some pretty cool background effects. But anyway, there are tons and tons and tons of these in here as you scroll down the list, based on the level of service that you contract with this company for. As you look, you can see some of these say premium on them, so they're not available unless you have a premium account. So for this type of client that we're going to work on, I actually prefer the original. To me, it has the coolest looks and the coolest effects and everything. So I'm going to jump right over to an existing client so we don't have to upload. But if we did, if we were starting from scratch, I would just simply come in here and upload my images, and it's already been done for me. That's why we don't have to go through that again. We can add text, 2 lines of text, 40 characters on one line, 50 characters on the subtitle line, and that's what these slides represent. We can add graphics and so forth. I can spotlight an image. For example, if I highlight it and tell it to spotlight, it gets this little yellow outline. And that's showing me that image is going to be on screen a little bit longer than the rest. We can duplicate, delete. This is where you upload. You can put your logo. You can change the style if you start working and decide you don't like the style. Then you can add music, and there's a huge library of music here. If we click on this, we can tell it to look for songs that are popular for photography, or you can you have a favorites list of things that you have clicked on, over the course of time that you've used it, that are your favorites, or you can browse the full library, and you can use these little check boxes on the left to narrow your search. You can see the genre here as you come down. There's cinematic, classical, country, electronica. There's 17 pages that I have access to. There's actually quite a few more if you have one of the premium accounts. But I'm going to keep the song that I have already selected. But what I can do, you can see, let me close this up. It's telling me that the song is 4 minutes, 13 seconds. My slides currently are using 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So let's say if I went in and spotlighted a couple of images, you can see how it's changing that. It's now 4:08. But there's actually a better way to do that, and that's by clicking the little gear icon and telling it to auto pace. You see, when it's set this way, you can make the images go faster or slower. But if you set it to auto pace, basically what it does is it fits the slides automatically to the length of the song. And so we'll hit save on that. And that's really all there is to it. You can move images around. You can put a caption underneath one by double clicking it and just typing in what it is you want it to say underneath. Let's do that on one of the first images just so that we can see what it looks like. I'll just type his name. We hit save. And then when you've got everything kind of lined up in the order that you want it, and this is very, very quick, you just click preview video, and it takes about 15 seconds. I'll get the sound back up here so you can see it, and it'll show you a low resolution preview of what it is that the slideshow would look like if you accepted it as is. Just give it a couple of seconds. Here we go. All right, so you get the idea on that. I will actually, let's just go through. If I were happy with it, I would just hit produce, and then it would ask me for a few pieces of information and what resolution I wanted to produce that in. Well, again, it's the good news is that I've already done this, so we don't have to do this. So let's just go to the video section where it exists. And this is the one that whoops, hang on, we don't want to do that. We want to play it. And we'll do it full screen. I'll just let this play out so that you can see the variety of transitions and things that it uses. And it really is that quick. It takes about 15 seconds to generate the preview. It takes just maybe 5 minutes for their server to render all of this, and then you just download the file. Most of the studio stuff is on the boring side. The outdoor stuff is generally where we have a little more fun. For the car enthusiasts out there, this is a 69 Mustang Mach 1 that has been completely restored. The hood scoop on that thing alone, I think, sold for about $4,000 or $5,000. It's not his car, by the way. He borrowed it. Getting near the end here. These are pieces of artwork that he's created in the background. Just small pieces of artwork that we made backgrounds out of. Alright, so that's how that works. We're going to get out of this entirely, and let's get out of this, and let's show you a couple of other things. So once that slideshow is complete and that's shown on a big screen in my sales room, we have a nice sound system that goes along with it. Kind of put everybody in the dark, set the stage, set the mood for it. And whether it's a guy or girl, it doesn't matter. If it's a high school senior, mom's in tears by the time it's over. So when that happens, you kind of know you got them. So this is the software then that we use to narrow them down and make our selections. You can see there are 74 images here. And we've got a little thumbnail strip on the left, plus we have the large thumbnails in the middle. Now this particular client is already ordered. When you see the little shopping cart icon, the little yellow icon in the upper left hand corner, it means that that is a photo that they've purchased in one way or another. But we're going to use the existing one so that we don't have to recreate it, just to show you how this process works and what this software is capable of, and why you would be leaving money on the table doing it fee-based. So first of all, the session fee for doing a session like this is $150. So we've already got that before we even get to this point. And you might have noticed when you were watching the slideshow that most of the images are photographed in pairs. You see the first two images are similar, second two images are similar, and so on down the line. There are a few times where that's not the case, but for the most part it is. So what I'm going to do is turn on the options that shows two of them at a time, so that when I double click on one, I actually get two images side by side. So what we're telling the clients to do is look at the images and whenever possible tell us which one they like better, left or right. And there are times where they want to keep both of them, and there are times where they don't like either one of them, and that's fine. But for the most part, they're going to look at this and say, well, we like the right one better than the left. So I highlight the left one. It's a real technical thing. You notice that all of the images, all 74, are in this middle tab. See, there's a smiley face, a frowny face, and then this middle tab, because right now we just don't know. So I'll select the one that they want to get rid of, and I'll click the frowny face, and it goes away. And then I'll use the arrows to move forward to the next ones. And they'll say, well, we like the one on the right. So the same thing, we click the frowny face, that one goes away, and all the way down the line. So we're going to keep this one, we might keep the left one, and so forth, on down the line like that. So I'm not going to go through all of this. I just wanted to show you the process for doing that. Until, let's say, we've got it narrowed down to just the ones that we're going to keep and look at. In fact, let me go ahead, and there's a bunch of these that I can see. I know that they did not order. So let me just pull a whole lot of those out just so that we can simplify this process a little bit. I'm not going to take all of them out, but we'll take a good bit of the ones that they didn't order, just to make this screen a little bit easier to manage. So that's out, that. And they did take all those. So we'll just put all those. And you can see if I go into this tab, these are all the ones that I took out. There's nothing right now in the happy face. And we've got 50 of them left in here. Now, typically, I'm going to try to get that number down to about 30 or so. And there's a reason for that. At this point, then we tell them to flip it around and start looking for their favorites. The largest favorite, the one that they might want to see hanging on the wall, and I'll have them pick out, 5, 6 images along those lines that they think might be appropriate for that. So we'll just pull up, let's see, what do we got? We have 4 selected. Let's look at 5 and 6. So we'll just bring up the 6 that they clicked on. I can get a little extra real estate by closing that tab. And now with them a little closer, or with them being shown against each other, it's a little bit easier to figure out. They might look at it and say, yeah, now that I look at them close together, I don't think I like the one that's down here, so we can get rid of that. And let's say, well, we'll get rid of the one up in the upper right as well. And so now we're down to 4 images. So that's kind of how the selection process works. And then let's say, this is the image, the lower left. This is the one that they decide that they want the largest image in. That's when we start building the invoice. And this is kind of the cool part. I'm actually going to create a new client here. Let's just call this, this is a test client. And we're going to save that and close. Okay. Oop, wait, I actually renamed that instead of, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's try this again. New client is what we want. So test 2 is what we want. All right. So right now this invoice is empty. There's nothing in it. So we'll close this up and go back. And so again, this is the image that they want. So we're going to click the little shopping cart icon and find out what size and what package. Let's say almost all the seniors are going to be either a 16 by 20 or 20 by 24. So let's say that it's a 16 by 20 in the blowout, and it comes framed. So we're going to add that in. So we can see as we go along what we order here. And I'm just going to go just a little further. Let me go back to this. And let's say they're going to pick out a series of 8 by 10s to give for gifts. So let's just take 5 or 6 of those, and they're all highlighted. We'll go back to the list, select an 8 by 10 in that size and in the blowout package as well, and add. So we're building this, but what you notice that you're not seeing are prices. I don't want to keep a running tab of prices here because people are going to look at the total and go, whoa, we're getting out of hand. We just want them to order what they think they want, and then at the end we'll present it to them, and if they need to make any changes, they can. But quite honestly, once it's done, once it's on paper, once they've gone through this process, they almost never make any changes, and if they do, it's a very small, very simple change. There are some other things we can add in here. Let's say that the package they created does not contain the slideshow, so we could add the slideshow that we showed. We could add a book, which is contains 30 images, which is again why I try to narrow down to about that 30 image, and we can add those in as well. And so I can turn this on and see the individual unit prices, and I can turn this on and see where we're at in total, and they work independently. We can turn one on or off, but typically I'm going to leave those off throughout the entire process. So let's look at a couple of other things. There's some layouts that we can show them. So they might want to do what we call a folio, which might have multiple images in it. This is just a representation. They're a little more custom than this. They're not, your generic sliding a picture under a mat like this looks like. They're much more freeform, but at least this shows them what those images will look like. And so if you look at the bottom of the window, these are all of the templates that are available. You can create these. There are tons of them that are already there, but if you have something very specific that you wanted to create, it's very easy to do it. There's an editor in here. We're not going to get into that right now. These wall strips are very popular. And then the other thing that we can do, I'm going to go into the room area. So these are some, in most cases, these are generic rooms, but we can also have a client photograph their own wall and send us a copy of that photo, just email it to us. And as long as they've measured something in the room, we can calibrate that, and then we can do something pretty cool. So I can take any image that they want, and I can move it over and go through. We have to duplicate that. We can go through the different sizes that we offer. You can see down here at the bottom the size change as I click this. So there is typically what a 16 by 20 would look like. We can move it around the room. This may not be calibrated perfectly. That looks a little large for a 16 by 20. Or we can go up to the next size. We can also show these images with a frame around them. And I'm just going to go down through my frame list. Let's say that one looks pretty good. We can even do groupings. Let's say we want to add more than one image. Let's take this one and increase. Yes, we'll do that. We're going to increase the sizes. There we go. And let's do the same frame on those that we had on the large one. It has a little a line up feature here, which keeps them, sort of the way that they should be. And then we might say, well, maybe that one needs to be a little bit bigger just to kind of match these two. So anyway, you get the idea. Let me take these two out because typically this works much better with a family. We'll start with the largest size that we offer, which is typically, well, it's not that large. 30 by 40 would probably be the largest we would do. Now imagine, again, this might have 10, 15 people in it, so it's not an overly large image for that. And we just start reducing the size, and we tell them, stop us when it gets too small. And so when we get down to an 11 by 14, that looks pretty tiny on that wall, even though this is not even a full sofa, it's just a love seat. So you can see that overcoming size objections is really, really easy using something like this. We can create books with it. Again, we have all very similar templates for books. This software will even create those files for us automatically. We can take an image. Oops, let's turn the double off. We can take an image and we could convert it to black and white. We can show it in a sepia tone. We can even run a custom action, like a Photoshop action, on these files to show them what it would look like with a certain effect or so forth. So we can add notes to it and so forth. So I'm only really just scratching the surface of what this software does. You can see there's a lot of things we haven't even talked about, a lot of little icons and things. We're not going to get into all of that right now. I just wanted to give you an overview. But let's go back into the actual client's order, and let's go back to so this was the grandmother, and she placed an order of about pre-tax it was $816, and the mother placed an order that was a little over $25, almost $2,600. So between the two, about $3,300 for this high school senior session. Now let me explain that there is a little increase in cost if you're doing product-based as opposed to fee-based. So I have to pay for the prints, I have to pay for the frames, I have to pay for, if they do a slideshow, the material cost to create a DVD or a thumb drive or whatever it is that they want that on. I would say the percentage of cost on an order like this, actually, let's look at that one more time, and I can probably give you a very good. So we did a book. The book was the only thing that I don't print and produce myself. I do send those out. The book sells for $348.50 with this package. My cost on it is about $42. So I made over $300 just on that book. Of all of the products that are in here, the 8x10s, including the frames and so forth, the frames do cost me a little bit of money. But I would say that my out-of-pocket material costs on the printing and the frames and the book and everything was probably in the neighborhood of about $250. So for a $3,000 or a little over $3,000 order, I had a $250 outlay. And don't forget, we have the $150 session fee, or the creation fee, that they'd also paid. So can you see how Charging $150 to go out and take these pictures and turn over a disc is not necessarily the best business model that you can use, because you are leaving an awful lot of money on the table. So, however you want to do it, I know most people, to feel comfortable starting out, it is going to be more of a fee-based, hey, give me a couple $100 and I'll shoot this for you. But just consider that once you find outlets for, there are labs that do these prints that, even though I print my own because I want the quality control, you can easily upload files to a lab or to a printer and have pretty good quality prints made. Actually, in some cases, amazing quality prints made. Even have them drop shipped right to your client's door, so you don't even have to touch them if you don't want to. A lot of ways to do it. And it's just an awful lot of money that's wasted if you're simply doing the fee. Just wanted to show you the differences between the two, and let's talk for a little bit, just for a second, on what needs to go into those prices. Let's say you are going to do fee-based. So what is it that your actual costs are? You can say, well, I'm going to go shoot this family group, and I'm going to put all of the images on a thumb drive. So my only cost is basically $2 for the thumb drive. Well, is that really true? Think about all of these things, especially if you are going to do this down the line to try to make some money at it. Who bought your camera? Somebody bought that camera, and somebody has to pay for that camera. And somebody has to pay for the upgrades and the new lenses that you want and the new flashes and all of the things that go along with it. Trust me, it is a never-ending process. If somebody says, well, once you have your equipment all purchased, it's all smooth sailing from there. That's bull, because you never stop buying, you never stop investing. Things break, they have to be replaced. What about overhead? What does it cost you in gas to go drive to that session? Somebody's got to pay for that. What about the time you might have spent talking to them on the phone? Time is the biggest one that people neglect to pay themselves for. There are only so many hours in the day, and that's where you really have your largest limitation is in time. Everything that you do for a client, they need to pay for. And I'll say that again, and I'll say it in a different way. But no matter what it is that takes your time in production of that work, and shooting that work, and driving to that work, or planning it, or whatever it is that you need to do, that client has to pay for that. Because if they don't, in the long run, you end up losing money every time you do a job. What about insurance? What about insurance on your equipment? What about liability insurance? What if somebody trips and falls while you're photographing them, or they trip over a light stand or a tripod or something like that, and they sue you? Who's going to cover that? Who's going to pay for that insurance? In my case, I have what's called a brick and mortar storefront studio, meaning I have a physical location. Well, I own the building now, but I had a mortgage payment on that. I had insurance payments on that. I have utilities, gas, electric, internet, all of that stuff. Every 8x10 that I sell, part of it has to go to pay for that. So you build your price list based on a least common denominator. I think right now an 8x10, if somebody comes in and just buys one 8x10, it's $79. Now I can produce that 8x10 for $1, but the other 78 is not only going to pay all of those expenses that I just mentioned, it's paying me as well, and it's paying the business. So there's a couple things to consider. I'm an employee of my business, so I get a paycheck. Part of that money has to pay me. The business also has to sustain itself and cover its costs, but it also has to make a profit. So all of that has to be built into that one 8x10. Now, in a case where somebody's ordering multiple copies, especially of the same image, do I discount those? Sure, I do sometimes. Not a ton, but we do offer discounts on things like that. There are times where I will look at something and look at what a client is thinking about purchasing, and if they're on the fence or teetering, I can find ways to push them over the edge a little bit. Let me give you an example. we offer a couple of products. Let's use the senior for an example, the slideshow and the book. And they don't cost the same amount of money, but there's not a huge difference between them. So if people are on the fence, if they say, well, I really like the slideshow and I really like the book, but I've already spent this much money, that's when I'll say something like, look, here's what I can do for you. If you buy the book, I'll throw the slideshow in for free. Now, the slideshow costs me literally probably $2 to produce. But if it's $79 or $99 on the price list, that's a value to them. That's value in their pocket. So they've saved $79, $99, whatever it is, but it hasn't cost me money. That's the difference between wholesale and retail. So if a client says, or if I would say to a client, well, I'll tell you what, I will knock $100 off of your bill if you do that. Well, I've just taken $100 out of my pocket. But if I give them a $100 product that only costs me $2, they've still saved $100, but I've still got $98 in my pocket now instead of just that, the two that we talked about before. So I hope you get the idea about, how to work around things like that, how discounting prices and competing on price alone is never a good idea. It's never a good business model. There's always somebody out there that will undercut you. What you need to do is find a way to offer things to people, and this is a very important line. Find things that you can offer people. It may be a product. It might be you. It might be the fact that they just like you and they want to work with you. That's something that nobody else can duplicate. Nobody else has that. So find something that is unique about you and sell that. It's far easier to do that than compete by, well, this guy's 8x10 is $10 and that guy's is $12, so I'm going to go with the $10 one because I don't see the difference anyway. You have to find something that is different. You have to promote that. And like I said, most of the time it's going to be your personality. It's going to be your talent, maybe your years of experience, whatever it is. You find a way to communicate that to that client and make them feel good about the money that they are going to spend. And it's an investment. In this case, this is a huge investment. It's a lot of money. But down the road, 20, 30 years from now, the dividends that this is going to pay are going to be huge for this kid's family, his kids, his grandkids, and his parents even as they move, on in age, to be able to look back and hang on to that slice of time in their child's life. The things that we do along these lines are priceless to people, and they will pay for it. They will pay what's appropriate for it if you just allow them to. So don't ever apologize for prices. Don't ever. The worst thing you can do is price things for what you can afford. By saying, well, I wouldn't pay that for that. You have just limited yourself again. You've ensured the fact that you'll never be able to afford something like that because your prices are never going to garner the type of income and the type of profit that you deserve from that. So there's a whole lot more we can get into on this, but I think I'm going to stop it here for now. We might wrap this up with one or two little things next week. But I just wanted to give you an overview of business in general. On the video that you're watching on YouTube, feel free to post comments down below. I want to try to get some more interaction with you guys. I believe that when we get to the point where the week before the final, when we do the review, we may consider doing a Zoom meeting so that we can actually have some physical interaction like we would have a normal class. I'm going to investigate that possibility. I actually have a 3-day Zoom meeting coming up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So we'll see how that goes, and if it works well, we may consider that, and I'll get that information to you. I will also do the image critiques, the submission critiques, and get those up in the next day or so. Hopefully, as soon as I do this, I'm going to be doing a couple of critiques from the last submission that you did. I was holding out, hoping for a couple more of you to submit, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So we'll go ahead and do it now. All right, so that's going to be it for now, guys. Please contact me with any. And I will also in the image critique that I post, I will give you an assignment for next week. I don't have that worked out right now, but I will get that to you very shortly. Contact me, email me, text me, whatever if you have questions. Otherwise, we'll see you soon, I hope.